We are recording, right?
We are.
All right, I double checked it. Welcome to the Hundredth Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. We are recording this on April 29th of 2016. And happy birthday, Elizabeth, if you happen to be listening.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, she's such a sweetheart, a beautiful soul. Anyways, we have been pursuing this UFO element here, and we've got one of our favorites back with us tonight.
Yes, we do.
And we're going to dig into it some more. You know, we had a great show with Franco Di Nicola here the other day, and you guys are I'm sure you've already listened to that show and have probably put some pieces together out of what we got there. And we're going to add to it tonight with Darryl E Berry Jr. If you guys have been listening to us for any length of time, you know Daryl is a regular on our show, and we just love him dearly. He's contributed so much to my own personal growth and to so many of you out there who have commented that you really appreciate what he has put out there on the world stage and contributed to your own personal development. So Darryl Berry, welcome back to the Hundredth Monkey Radio.
Yay.
Awesome. Thanks for having me back.
And this is we've really focused the show here for the last few years on that consciousness and ascension or the spiritual aspects of our development here. And it came to both Elephant and I here about 6 weeks ago. We were sitting here talking and decided, and it came up that, that UFO card, that alien card always seems to pop up no matter what path you go down to open your awareness, to grow your spirituality. That element always seems to interject itself in some way, shape, or form. And so we decided that we needed to explore that a little bit more than what we've done in the past and see if we can't, fit this piece of the puzzle in a little better on our grand mosaic of life and all the different aspects that we've come across so far. So, Daryl, I know that I know personally through some conversations we've had in the past and on some of the shows also that you've had some experiences yourself. But for those out there who may not have heard those shows and heard those experiences, can you share with us what you've experienced and what your first experiences were? That's kind of where I'm pointing at here initially. What kind of stuff you experienced early in your life?
Certainly, my very first experiences were with the Greys, with the classic gray alien beings, and I used to actually see them like in my living room. I used to get up out my bed and walk into the living room and see them in the living room. I used to walk out up to the front door, and one would be standing in the front door. So they seemed to be pretty regularly a part of my childhood. I remember I used to have dreams of seeing fleets of their craft flying across the sky, and I remember one night going outside and in the front yard, and there was a craft hovering right over the tree in the front yard. And my experience now, looking back, is that some of these experiences were physical and some were non-physical, which is quite interesting because my parents, apparently had no clue about any of this going on. I was around between the ages of, between 4 and 10, I would say, was the majority of it happening. And, that was the majority of my interaction, just seeing them around, seeing and having brief conversations with them that I don't remember the full details of. I remember having a conversation with them about their spacecraft. And I just remember coming away from the conversation knowing how to build one of their craft, which I actually was tempted to do. I remember a conversation I had where they told me that they was actually my real family. Like they told me that that I incarnated here with the family that I incarnated in, but before I incarnated where I am now, I was a part of their family in the past, which is possible. But that's also, in my research over the years, that seems to be also one of the stories that they might tell to help get compliance as well, depending on what kind of race you are. Because what I found over the years is that, at least most of the Greys that interacted with humans, they were interacting really for their own genetic evolution to help make a hybrid species. And we call it abduction when these things happen, but the fact is that uh, you know every single interaction that we have is actually voluntary. So I remember when I got older and I realized, because when I was a kid, I didn't really think much of it. That's just what happened. You go to sleep and you float out of body and you see little gray beings walking around, and then you wake up and you go to school. And that's just what I thought everything was. And when
Yeah.
but later when I thought back, I said, wow, I was very thankful for those experiences. And I would actually reach out telepathically and tell them, hey, if I was a part of the hybridization program, awesome. And I'm willing to still be a part of it. So that's how my interactions with ETs first started. And by the way, the reason why I didn't attempt to try to make it a craft, because I figured that if I try to do something like that, the people that we call government would steal my work or something like that, or use it for some kind of nefarious purpose. So I didn't even try to write anything down. Like I thought of writing stuff down, but I didn't write anything down. I didn't want to keep any record of it. And of course now all of that information is gone. I don't remember any of it anymore. But ironically, years later, I read about this guy named David Adair, and he had a similar experience. He learned how to build advanced propulsion systems in what he said was his dreams. He called it his dreams. And he didn't mention any ETs, but he just said he would go to sleep and wake up with all these formulas and ideas. And he actually built it. And sure enough, the people we call government came and took his rocket and stuff like that. But that's how my experiences first started.
Yeah, there's uh, there's so many people who have shared very similar experiences about having interactions in their normally before they're like 6-7 years old, that real early age, memories of having that playmate or that friend that was the friend who happened to be an alien.
Mm-hmm. Imaginary friend.
Right. They call him,
Yeah.
well, everybody's termed those as your imaginary friend, right? Um, Along those lines, this is something that is a personal experience. You can be standing in a room, you'll have one of these beings in the room with you where you're able to perceive them, and they're completely, uh, unobservable to anybody else that's in the room and I guess where I'm going here is this just is this a frequency phenomena here, or is it a complete mind or consciousness projection that's happening there, or is there an actual is the being physically there but just maybe existing on a different frequency that's not able to be perceived by somebody else unless they're tuned in? You follow where I'm going with this question?
Yes. I found that uh, the phenomena, just the basic phenomena of somebody being able to see it and somebody else not. I mean, that can actually come about by several different means. One is that the universe is much more layered than and I guess I can't say than we give it credit for now, because now we have quantum physics and they're talking about string theory and stuff like that. So even our scientists are starting to find out that there's many different dimensions. And the way it works out is different beings literally exist on different dimensions. A good example is I ran into an account where this man was he was going through some kind of emotional turmoil, or maybe emotional elation, but he was very emotional at the time, and he liked the drum, so he took this drum set, like two or three drums that he patted on with his hands, and he went outside on his porch and started drumming, and he got into a very, very heightened, very, very, very emotional state, and as he was drumming and just in the moment in drumming, and what caught his eye was a craft was floating in the distance, and that terrestrial craft was just floating and hovering in the distance. And when he saw the craft, and he stopped drumming and started focusing on the craft, he was able to see it just for like a minute or two. But then as he started to come out of the altered state he was in, the craft slowly disappeared. And so what happened is the craft was there, but it was just there at a different frequency that you're not going to perceive unless you access that different frequency. And so that's sometimes what it is. Simply that the craft is not that they're hiding or anything like that. It's just that the actual frequency that they exist on is of a vibration or frequency that you just will not be able to perceive unless you know how to access it. Either by changing your state of being, by changing your emotional state, by changing your vibrations, or simply by altering your perceptions, by, for instance, activating your third eye and scanning different frequencies. Like, for instance, I ran across an account to where this guy in Israel named Adrian DeVere, he has several contacts. We can talk about him if you like. And but he was a part of this meditation group, and the meditation teacher took them out to this lake. And they've been practicing for a few weeks on entering altered states and activating their third eye. And they activated their third eye, and when they did so, they was able to see a craft hovering over the lake that they could only see when their third eye was activated and they were looking at that frequency. So, some of these craft, they just exist at a frequency where it's slightly askew from where we at. They could be standing right next to us and we won't see them unless we alter the frequency, which is what Adrian DeVere experienced. They opened up a hospital in his apartment. They basically overlaid a hospital or a clinic, whatever you want to call it, at their frequency, that overlaid and interpenetrated his apartment at his frequency. And they will actually come and work on people medically. And they will be able to feel things happening to their body, but they won't be able to see anything. And sometimes they might see flashes of light at the corner of their eye, things walking by at the corner of their eye, but they couldn't really focus on it and see them. So basically there's another world overlaying ours.
Right.
Now, the other aspect of it is the fact that, a lot of people don't want to know. Ever since I've been, being public and talking about ETs and stuff, I've had people contact me in various ways, and they're frightened about the ET subject. It's very frightening to them. Either it's frightening because they think someone's going to take over. It's frightening because they think that they're demons. I've heard many different reasons why some people are very afraid of the topic. And if that's the case, we could simply block out perception of it. It's just willful denial. So, which is very common. The person whose spouse is cheating on them and everybody knows with them, but really they know they're just blocking it out their mind as a common example. So sometimes people just don't see it because they're literally dissociating that information from their mind.
Yeah.
And that would be the primary two. Apart from the fact that sort of our changeable frequency range can shift and access them. I mean, some of these beings, in a sense, exist in a totally different universe, and they actually have to like there's some that exist close enough to us so where we can see them if we shift a bit. But for instance, like Rashard illustrated an example of the fact that, like, some people, for instance, are afraid that ETs are going to take over, for instance. But if your natural frequency is distinct enough from another being or another civilizations, there's pretty much no way you can possibly interact with each other. So, let's say someone is like, I've heard, accounts or people say that, for instance, Eisenhower met with ETs and these people met with ETs and they were very negative and so on and so forth. But I've never met any beings like that. So for instance, there can actually be a race of being and a civilization that is sort of interacting with Earth, but is really interacting on a different Earth. And this gets a bit esoteric. Like, the way it works is, being that this planet is in transition, in a sense, we don't live on just one Earth. In a sense, we live on a myriad of verse interacting with each other. Like one of the ways I heard Bashar describe it is like someone was asking him, you know, about, for instance, tyrannous government and so on and so forth, and he was saying that there's some people who never experience some of the things we experience, who maybe even never experienced 9/11, for instance, and you could be sitting in the same room with the person at that moment, because at that moment you choose to vibrate and have this group meeting. But when you leave that room, you could literally go to a different universe, to the point that you could sort of see someone next to you, but they're literally in a different universe. So they could be seeing and experiencing something totally different that you have no idea of. So that's a bit more esoteric, but that does actually play into it a bit as well.
Yeah. So, so when you were talking about these beings just being a little bit out of our frequency, so we can't see them. Now, for those beings, are since okay, for those beings, is there a portion of them that can see us and a portion of them that can't see us because we're outside of their frequency, or can they always just see us when they?
Are you wondering if their level of perception or their range of perception, the spectrum that they're able to
if they
see, is it larger than what we are, or are they
That's
similar to us?
Well,
That's right. In my experience, it goes from the top down. In my experience, if the being is more advanced than us, then they can see us. So you could always see down. That's my experience. So for instance, using the out of body experience as a perfect example, I'm able to go out of body and sometimes find myself in a very negative, low energy realm. I could just fly up and leave that realm. There's no way that negative entity, that demonic entity or whatever, can possibly follow me up into a light realm. But I can perceive those lower realms whenever I want. So that's pretty much the way it works. So if you have an extraterrestrial race who's more advanced in our society, then they could perceive this dimension. We just may not be able to perceive theirs. And that's the way it usually works. If an extraterrestrial race is less advanced than us, if an extraterrestrial race is even more hell bent on destruction and things like that than us, then they will come here and for instance, they might find this planet barren. They might come here and see no life. They'll be literally existing in a different universe where they just do not interact with us. And the only way they'll be able to perceive us is to increase their vibrations. But and even though, of course, on this planet we don't have that technology, but if we had that advancement, we will be able to go ahead and perceive them. But they will not be able to perceive us. You can't perceive anything that's higher than your own perceptions, but you can perceive downward.
Yeah. Okay. Also we've been talking and we kind of classified the UFO phenomena into three broad categories. In our first category was the actual alien, life form from another planet, or extraterrestrial, extra dimensional, right? And then we went from there and we thought about black ops programs through government or corporation or whoever, using advanced technology that us as a populace don't understand yet. And then we thought of breakaway civilization, ancient civilizations that used to live on Earth and that could have left and came back, or that could have moved to let's say inner Earth or hollow Earth, or someplace under the ocean or someplace like that.
The moon
or Mars, yeah. So looking at these different phenomena and these different things that we're seeing in our skies, how much of that do you put into the actual alien category, or how much of that do you put into one of the other categories, the black ops or the breakaway civilization?
Nowadays, I really don't know as far as percentage. I more and more I get away from trying to keep up with the government thing. So, I heard people talk about the TR-3B and you're supposed to this triangular craft they made, and I already know how much stuff they have flying around. I've heard people say that they in a sense, even fake sightings sometimes to try to control the direction of the spin. So I don't really know what percentage it is. Um, I just I just I just I just focusing on the road thing and having contact, because that really goes back to the personal growth thing. Like we was talking about ET contact and spiritual growth. I'm starting to find that the more I focus on government and whatever it is they're doing, the more I align myself with them, and it goes back to that same dynamic we was talking about earlier. You know, on Earth right now, the Earth is starting to, in a sense, split, and I don't really have a good way to functionally explain it except that, in a sense, you have a whole bunch of people on the Earth, and we're literally starting to shuttle off into different Earths, different timelines where different things are happening, and if you make it an issue or an importance about what these people are doing and how much they're flying around, and it basically aligns you with that vibration and aligns you with them. So I don't really care. But I know in my experience, you can tell an ET craft. I mean, like it just seems so foreign, and of course it doesn't hurt the fact that a lot of times the government trying to catch up with them. Like, one of the sightings I had, a black helicopter was trying to get to it, and
Yeah.
so which other people have found as well. Like Stephen Greer would have contacts, and they'll be sending out airplanes and stuff trying to catch up with the craft. But I think the people who run into that is you know people who focus on that,
Yeah.
and want to, have some kind of conflict on that sense. Not to say that they constantly want to have conflict, but if you have a group of people that want conflict and you're constantly focusing on what they're doing, somewhere in there you want conflict, So, what were you asking to just out of curiosity, or to find out how to avoid the government? Like,
Well,
what
see,
was the?
for me, I've had sightings of things that I know, that I can feel that are, extraterrestrial or, interdimensional, contact. But then I've seen things also that have been, that are physical solid objects, that are, not aerodynamic, that are just, really, really odd looking. They don't look like, anything that I've ever seen before, that are flying around and that just seem to disappear, solid physical objects. And so, it just makes me think, how much of these things that we're seeing in our skies are things that are this extraterrestrial, interdimensional, and how many of these things are, black ops or breakaway civilization technology, through third dimensional based technology that, just appears so advanced to us that they're just all getting lumped into the same category.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody that's happened. I don't even know the percentage.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I uh, distinguish for myself is by having contact with the beings. Like, we don't have to depend upon only physical. Like for instance, the sighting I had last year where, I got on the craft and my friend got a video of the craft. I saw the beings. Or when I had those sightings in New Orleans, I was reaching out telepathically for contact, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
One of the craft that I got on when we was going through the solar system, on another period of time, I was seeing beings out of body, and my friend saw beings out of body and said, "Oh, these beings are going to come and interact with you." So, one thing about contact is, if you see a craft and you're not sure, is that a Earth craft? Is it a actual ET craft? Sit in meditation and reach out telepathically and ask. And it doesn't even have to be at that period of time. It could be the next day or the next year. Ask, and you
Yeah.
can actually have interactions and contact with these beings. And that's one way I would say, just to validate it. I mean, unless you shoot it down, which I don't suggest trying to do in any case.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
You're not going to be able to really
No.
see what's in it in that sense if it just goes away. But if it is an actual ET craft, they will have telepathic contact with you. I guarantee that if someone sees an ET craft, it's not an accident. Even if it's a casual synchronistic event, the beings that are coming here, they don't believe in accidents and coincidence. They recognize synchronicity.
Yeah.
The way that the oneness of the universe interplays. So if you have a sighting, you could communicate with the beings and validate that is actually with a sentient race that's from a different dimension or a different planet. So, and that's what I go by.
Yeah, I definitely get that too, because I listened to my first instinct on this, my intuition, and some of the things I see, I feel that good vibe from, that hey, I'm here and I want you to see me. That's you've been asking, so here I am. And some of these things that I see are like, whoa, wait a minute, let me turn the car around or something, so. It just goes back and forth. I try to use my intuition with that. Also, do you think that, how we use the word alien, the broad meaning of alien, do you think that that's a misinterpretation of what we're actually seeing? Do you think a better terminology would be something like interdimensional or extra dimensional, or, something along those lines?
It just seems that there's too much baggage attached to some of the labels that we put on this stuff.
No, I think that's fine. Even if they're from a different dimension, they're still aliens to this dimension. So, to me, it fits.
Yeah, because see how I see most people interpreting the word alien is that, it's a physical third dimensional body that comes from a planet that orbits another star system that came here on a physical craft, and is totally third density. I'm not sure if that's just how I've heard, how I've seen the word alien interpreted.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to make a different word because some people misinterpret it. I think there's room for people to expand their definition of the word to encompass all that it can mean, and I think that I think that the reality of the situation warrants the use of every word that we have, alien, interdimensional, otherworldly, intertemporal, extragalactic. I think all of those words have their place. I think if somebody wants to seize upon that word and make it mean one thing and don't want to see beyond that small meaning, it's probably they just don't want to know. And, you could do anyway, but, when I think of the word, it doesn't really matter to me. Language is really irrelevant anyway. It's really just about
ultimately,
what's really going on. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. No, I'm sure they don't care.
So, what do you think about that? The possibility of one of our prior Earth-based civilizations that evolved to a high state of technology that were able to develop the craft to be able to travel, at least within our local solar system or even just on the planet, that prior to our last extinction level event, the flood, which is the most recent, that they were able to either hide themselves away in the inner Earth or on the moon or Mars, or do you think that is a reality, that we have that culture here that from the Atlantean days that is still existing here and interacting with us on some limited fashion?
Well, based upon my research, and I only have, third-hand research that I've done over the years for this, based upon my research, the Atlantean civilization, it did die. Like, there's no remnants of that civilization here, like the actual people that carried on. But there are sort of caches of the technology around. But according to my research, there are different extraterrestrial races that other than the Atlanteans and that have come here, and there are different beings that are here other than the Atlanteans that are relatively advanced, like the Sasquatches and things like that. But based upon my research, I don't think the Atlanteans are still around. I think just some of the remnants of their technology are still around.
So there wasn't a linear track of a civilization here on the planet that retained its its evolution technologically and went underground, so to say?
Based upon my research, no. Based upon
Yeah.
my research, it's not. When that extinction event happened, they actually got destroyed, and a civilization ended. But of course, that's just based upon my research. I mean,
Right.
maybe I'll try to go out of body and investigate that. I'll try to motivate myself to start practicing again fully. And maybe that's one of the things that I'll investigate. But you know, but there are advanced ET races here, and some of them come from like the Pleiadians have bases here. I run into several accounts of people who met Pleiadians in various mountains around the planet and things like that. So there are advanced races here. I suppose some people might even mistake them for Atlantean people and stuff like that. But based upon my research, they're not still around. They're gone. Just like the Mayans, they died off. But that's just the way it is, man. I mean, that's the process we're going through right now.
Right.
Destroying that civilization. Even though I think now, of course, we have a good option of stopping it from happening. But I mean, the AIDS virus was made. According to my research, it was a created virus, and it was targeting certain people. And of course, it does the way it's transmitted. It is easier to transmit between homosexuals, and I'm pretty sure it's no accident that there's like pockets of high prominence of it in Africa and places like that. But as you can see, that thing just started flying around everywhere. So people making these designer diseases to kill people, and they spraying stuff in the air. There's all kind of craziness going on.
Right.
So I mean, we could very easily see ourselves, in an extinction event with this civilization, the crazy stuff that we're doing. But that's just the way it's been, man. We destroy ourselves over and over again. Society destroys itself, then some ETs come here and start up again, and it just starts up again, and then we die off again. It's just the insanity that is this planet,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really baffles me that there is not a more there has not been a more direct and a more open interaction between those more advanced cultures that are visiting the planet and helping to guide us and maybe even seeded us here, there's a lot of evidence out there that is the case, where that we are basically the product of either genetic manipulation or just a direct colonization, and then left to our own ways and means to develop the culture here, the civilization here, from a very third dimensional perspective. It kind of baffles me that there's such a hands-off approach from those many races that have been visiting the planet. What's your opinion on that, and why there was such a hands-off approach to our development?
Well, because they actually live by the high principles that we often only give lip service to on this planet. Like our Constitution in America, at least the Declaration of Independence talks about inalienable rights and the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like we give lip service to that. But I just remember seeing on social media where this guy, he built this house and he wanted to live natural and off grid. He didn't want to have a carbon footprint, or he wanted to, whatever the reason was, he got solar panels and a rainwater collector. Like he has all the amenities of home, but it's all natural and self-contained. And the people we call government in this area went to his house and said they were going to, is unsafe and he needs to hook up to the city power, or he's going to be evicted and is going to be considered trespassing on his own property. This is the kind of stuff we do in a land that's supposed to be the land of the free. Well, they actually believe in liberty. So if you want to blow each other up and lie to each other and hate each other and kill each other, then that's your choice. It's simple as that. So it's not that they abandoned us, or it's not like a hands-off approach, as like we see a little kid about to put his hand in the fire and we want to go ahead and stop his hand. Well, they recognize us as a child species in a sense that we're third density, but they also recognize that we are sentient beings. This is our planet, you know. And that's one of the things that that I got into in the ET talk I did. I guess last month, I don't remember when that was, earlier this month. But you know, is a common uh 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 meme that these ET races are sending waves of helpers here to incarnate, and they're going to help us. And you know, and whenever I see people talk about that, there's always a focus on these beings coming to help us, like some savior thing. It's not what it's about. You know, they recognize that we are sentient beings, and they respect the choices we make for ourselves. You know, so if we choose to have a world of destruction and self-destruction and hatred and alien means third density, you know, physical being, and they're too far away to get here, and all the different stuff that we focus on, then they're respectful enough and acknowledging enough of our divine, you can say, right to choose our own reality, that they don't interfere with that. So it's not that they have hands off, it's that basically we telling them keep your hands off. We want to have this third density game going on, and your fourth density stuff is putting the crink in our stuff. So stay away, so I can keep on hating this person because their skin color is different from me. You know, because y'all put a damper on that. That's where basically where it's at. So it's not that they have hands off, is that we're saying stay away from us because we're doing our third density game. And that's really what it is. It's just respect. You know, it's they're sharing the same respect for us that they share for themselves and for each other. You know, they allow each other to, you know, like when I read about the Biavian civilization that Riley Martin, rest in peace, who interacted with the Biavians, and in one of his contacts that he shared in his book, I don't remember how they got onto the subject, but they was talking about drugs. And he was asking basically, do y'all have laws against drugs or things like that? It was like, no, you know, they don't have any laws against doing this or that. And everybody just does what they want to do, and they just don't hurt anybody else. So if you say there is a community that engages in different kind of drugs like that, and they actually produce a lot of art and from that community, but they allow people to choose their own existence. So they apply that to us. You know, they don't have a fourth density perspective of self-responsibility and allowance for themselves, and then come here and say, let me save you from yourself. They allow each other, and they allow us to blow ourselves up if that's what we want to do, you know?
Yeah. So do you think that the UFO phenomena is mainly non-physical?
Oh no, I mean it's a full spectrum event. I mean it's physical and non-physical. You know, it starts non-physical usually because, you know, it's that's the easier avenue to come through, and it's easier for us to avoid, you know, acknowledging it. You know, like it always amuses me a bit when people say uh, there's a common idea that open contact hasn't happened, but I mean, from my perspective, it can't get more open and direct. I mean, I don't see how it can possibly get more open and direct than it already has, you know. So, you know, there's been physical sightings like the Phoenix Lights. There's been all kind of out-of-body contact with people. There's been channeling contact with Lisa Royal and Daryl Lanka, and I'm sure others. And you know, there's been crash craft, and apparently there's been government meetings with certain factions of Grays. There's been underground bases like Phil Schneider has found with his interactions. I mean, there's all of these things going on. So on the whole spectrum of existence, contact is happening. Contact is not solely one or the other, even though, again, it may start solely non-physically, but that's only because of our own restrictions that we put on it. But even that contact is often assisted physically. Like, for instance, when Bashar interacts non-physically with Daryl Lanka, you know, he's in his craft, and his craft helps to amplify his thoughts. My understanding is that the just like how they can control their craft with their thoughts. You know, they can use their craft to help have contact and telepathic contact and things like that. You know, according to Billy Meyer, uh, he learned how to make this sort of meditation chamber that's built upon the same principles of the pyramid. Like basically, they built this mini pyramid that's the same dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and people would sit inside it and meditate it. And the best ones, the ones who was more adept at it, they could even levitate. inside of this pyramid because it would help focus their thoughts to a certain point. So even when we have non-physical contact, often there's a physical counterpart to it that's allowing it to happen to the degree that it is. So in my experience, contact is always really a multi-dimensional event. It's just us in this civilization because we still so heavily third density that we want to separate it off into certain ways and make it just that or just this, just like with the language, make it just aliens or just that, or we have to find a new word. All of these things don't really matter. It's an all-encompassing thing that really includes your entire being, and that's why I tapping into what Tom was saying about what the discussion was about growth. That's why ET contact happens around growth, around personal development and growth, because the progression from third density to fourth density is the progression from partiality to inclusion and an all-encompassing holistic approach. You're starting to hear that now, holistic medicine. Let's treat more than just the physical body. So, that's where these beings live at. That's their state. They act as holistic beings. Even the way our psyche is made, the way that we've structured it is very fragmented. That's why a lot of people could feel so violated with the abduction phenomena, because we've so fragmented ourselves that we dissociate from ourselves the part of ourselves that want to have contact. Just like how we dissociate from ourselves the part of ourselves that wants to have this third density world. We don't really want them to interfere. Just like I was saying before about are you ready to unite and make a world free of government? Everybody complains and is upset until they ask that question. Then you see how really how much they're not really upset about it. So, it's a holistic event. And the more that we integrate ourselves, the more people will be able to have contact on every single level. And that's very important because the trap that can happen is if you try to section off contact and make it more this or more that, or make this aspect of contact greater than that aspect of contact, then really you cut off contact entirely because you're having contact with beings that are holistic to them. Whether I interact with you out of body, or I interact with you telepathically, or I land my craft and shake your hand, or I send a message to you while you're sleeping and it appears in your dream. All of these things are valid contact. So it's really upon us to start to validate and cease invalidating every single avenue upon which contact can happen, and acknowledge that every single avenue is intricately a part of every other avenue. All of them interact and intersect, and really one can't really happen without the other.
Right. So do you think this whole phenomena is primarily more beneficial as a personal experience versus it having a broad and collective acceptance? Because there's collectively it's not an acceptable accepted phenomena. The official and the official word is it's not there. We're all by ourselves, right? But individually, it and I know for me personally, it was the whole experience has had a significant impact on my own development. So do you think that it's the reason? I guess I'm kind of digging for a motivation behind it being a more of a personal event versus it being collectively accepted and acknowledged openly.
Well, it's only a personal event because every event is only a personal event. Like you said, officially, it doesn't happen. I imagine you're referring to like the official government stance and things like that, and
right.
And the majority. Well, the government stance is a personal stance. It's very necessary for us to discontinue making these people the government or making these people the official. Government is just a person over there saying this is the way it is, and they say, oh, let's write it down, and then now it's law and is official. It's just a person. Just like the corporations, we have these corporations and we say, you know, such and such oil company spilled oil. No such and such oil company doesn't exist. The tanker driver hit something and spilled oil or messed something up, or such and such company did this. No, such and such, Mr. Such and such decided it's going to be this way, and he told somebody else do that, and that person did it, and then this is what we have. It's not such and such corporation did it. All this stuff is just nonsense, really. It's just some kind of I don't even know how to describe it. I don't even know how to describe it. I don't know why we even in the court systems, these people decided to make a corporation a person. It makes absolutely no sense. So the first thing we have to do is stop, anthropomorphizing just ideas and figments. There's no such thing as government. There's no such thing as corporations and companies. There's no such thing as the official position. There's just different people that we call the government. If you go to, like, for instance, we can say, quote, the government give this official position. If we listen to the person who, let me give a specific example. We have the crash that happened in 1947, and when the crash happened, and I'm sure you've seen the newspaper cover. The first thing that came out was a flying saucer recovered in Roswell. You could see the newspaper cover. That's the first thing they printed. The next day, they came and they said it's a weather balloon. Sorry, we made a mistake. It's a weather balloon. That's what they did the next day. So the official position, the official government position, is just a weather balloon. And then people say, oh, it's the government, and they keep it secrecy. Okay, well, the newspaper published that, which means that there was some human being that sat at his computer and typed it out. And that person's boss told him to type that. And some human being told that boss to type that. And you can trail it all the way up to just a handful of people who are deciding this stuff. So again, it's all personal perspectives. Every single perspective is a personal perspective. Now, if someone decides that this person, let's say Joe Blow, he said that it's a weather balloon, and he told everybody it's a weather balloon, and if we call that Joe Blow's what he says the official government position, then that's my personal choice to make this person, quote, government. This is my personal choice. All there is personal perspective. I remember watching that movie Men in Black, which was totally there's this line in the movie that totally illustrates the insanity that we all hold on to. He said, individual people are smart, but masses of people are dumb. This is what he says. That makes absolutely no sense. And when people started, it was like, yeah, I see that. That makes absolutely no sense. If you have 1 million people, that's 1 million individual people. You mean to tell me that if you have Einstein, and if you clone Einstein 1 million times so it's Einstein, suddenly those 1 million people will be just a bunch of dumb people? No. If you have Einstein and you clone Einstein 1 million times, you have a damn evolved civilization. If you take every single individual person on Earth and clone them into Jesus, they're not going to suddenly become a third density planet blowing each other up. It's going to be a damn enlightened society. So the reason why the world as a whole is the way it is because the individual people is a reflection of the individual people. All there is in the individual personal perspective. So going on from that, all you have to do is change your own perspective. And that's really all you have to worry about. There's no official perspective. There's just one person's perspective or one small group of people's perspective that everybody personally decides to believe is the official perspective, So, and of course, the way that we've set it up, we don't really know who these people are. Like for instance, with the 9/11 thing, we don't know who individually it was that planted the nanothermites in the World Trade Center. It's probably somebody from the CIA, but we don't have names. But it was some individual person that did that. And it was an individual person, Dick Cheney, apparently, who had these military drills with the aircraft and did all this crazy stuff to keep the fighter planes away from shooting their drone planes down that ran into the 9/11 building. It's individual people who do that, you know. So we have to stop making these individual people in their lives some official government. Just like we have to stop making these individual people who, people say, these big corporations. And I'm not trying to say their names to give time to them, but you know who they are.
Right,
Big
right.
companies that send their jobs overseas. Oh, such and such company, they're sending their jobs overseas. No, there's an individual multi-billionaire who wants to make another billion, and he says fire these people and give their jobs to the people overseas. It's people doing that. So there's only the personal perspective. So if you want to, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the allowance. I really think the reason why we don't acknowledge that, when it's such an apparent fact when you think about it, the reason why we don't acknowledge that is because we don't really believe in freedom. We really don't. We really don't believe in freedom. We really don't believe in liberty. We really don't believe in honesty. So we lie to each other, and we lie to ourselves, and we believe the lie that this one human being or this small group of human beings is government, and we believe the lie that this human being over here is this corporation. You know what I'm saying? It's just a bunch of nonsense. It's just a bunch of lies. It just, it's a civilization based on lies. So I think, like I said, man, I just work on myself and work on my own perspective, and that's how a lot of these things start to become more clear to me as I start to apply these full density perspectives to myself and change my own state of being. And stuff just, it's just crazy the way this world is, and it becomes so apparent. But as I was saying earlier, the world, it's like I don't know the exact word to call. I know there's a word, but it's like like you have a diamond in this. It's like faceted. It's multifaceted. That's what I'm looking for. It's multifaceted. So, there's some shards of the planet where you have perspectives, these official perspectives and stuff like that. And there's shards of the planet where there's shards of the planet, man, where it's just a totally different perspective. And from that perspective, man, it's just a whole lot better. And you realize that you just have to focus on your own perspective and realize that no one is a victim. No one is the victim of some official perspective. And it's not some kind of mass thing that's going on. It's everybody's individual choice. They're making the same choice. So they do it, it looks like they're a group,
Right, right. Well, that is, I fully understand what you're talking about there, but that's for majority of the people out there, and a lot of the people that are listening to the show right now. There's a lot of steps in between. There's a lot of steps in between. The completely third dimension, completely immersed into what the story that is being projected out there is. That mentality to getting to a place where you're able to see that it is a personal perspective and it's a personal view, and it's a personal choice to be and accept and know what we do know. There's I don't know. I guess it's just there's so many different, we've complicated it so damn much. There's so many explanations for everything out there. And again, these are all personal perspectives. Those are good points you make there. Absolutely good points you make there. But there's just so many different aspects to this, and steps that people have to take to be able to eliminate the possibilities, right? Because if something piques your interest, most people will follow that, at least until they determine whether or not there's any validity to it or not. So we're able to actually have an experience, and then we're able to dissect it for ourselves and understand it a little bit deeper. Then that's on a personal level. But then you take that, what you just experienced, and superimpose it over the collective view, or what's projected as the quote unquote official view. And then there's, I guess that's where the confusion starts setting in, because then you'll have all these differing opinions and viewpoints on what something is or what something was. And it just gets so damn chaotic and so hard to bring something into focus for ourselves when we tap ourselves into the airwaves and we start listening to all these different perspectives. So I don't know, maybe the best way to do this is to crawl into a hole and block everything out. I don't know. It gets so we are masters at complexity. We like to complicate things. We like to I mean it's so apparent when I look out there and you take something as simple as understanding unity, understanding the fundamental and undeniable connection that we all have in as one life form, and it gets so complex. What do they say? Something about truth is very simple. The ultimate truth is very simple, but it's so simple that people can't believe it because it's got to be more complex than that. I don't know.
So, so back to some UFO stuff. I got a couple questions about what you said earlier.
Okay.
Now you say you've had contact with Pleiadians, right? And you've heard that they stay in different mountains and things like that. Now, are they here as like a colony, or are they here as observers, or like scientists, or like what is their purpose that you've been able to find out that why they're actually here?
Well, I haven't had discussions with them about what they did. It was just seeing them, interacting with them in the outer body state, and so I haven't been to any of their bases on Earth or anything like that. I found there's people who have been, like for instance Billy Mayer or Shirley MacLaine shared a contact with somebody who had, and basically they're here because they're us. Like for instance Lisa Royal, who channels Sasha, who's the Pleiadian. Sasha is Lisa Royal's future incarnation. Also, we're human, but the Pleiadians are basically human. I mean, really, in a sense, you could say they're not human anymore because the way they've progressed genetically, because of the way that they've thought. Of course, their physiology is no longer the same as ours. There's a lot more silicon in their body and things like that. Yeah. But basically, humanity, all humans, like all of the different genetics like we have, come from one race of humans, and it just originated from the Lyran system, and it basically dispersed out throughout the galaxy, and so really they're here because they're us. They're here because they're us, and in a sense, really they're helping themselves. So, and that's really always the case. The same thing with Bashar, who's a future incarnation of Daryl, and just like with me with Okanos, who was a father of mine in another lifetime. So, these beings who are coming here, they're really coming to help us. The same thing with the Yael, who were the beings who flew the 2-mile wide craft over Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. They are hybrids, which means they are our descendants, right? Mm-hmm. But of course, they can time travel. So, for instance, like Bashar, and they could come from the future and come back. But they are related to us in some way. So, and they're not everywhere. There's different timelines of the Earth where they're not there. But if you're experiencing them or even aware of them, that means that you're making a personal choice to align with a timeline in which you can interact with them. Because I want to say that to say it's not like they're not impossible themselves. They're not. They always only come where they're welcome. I remember I heard Bashar giving a talk of somebody asked him how many different Earths he's talking to. and he was able to give a different number like each second, like the number the amount of Earths that have people on it that are open to different realities, it changes. So but again, going back to the question, they're here because they're helping themselves. Really, they're here because they're helping their own descendants or their own ancestors. That's why they're here. They're here because they're explorers. That's what they like to do.
Right.
Bashar is a contact specialist. That's what he likes to do. Sasha is like a sociologist. That's what they like to do. The Pleiadians, they have bases here. They like that region of the planet.
Yeah.
So they come here sometimes. So, by no means are they coming to be saviors or anything like that in that sense, but they're doing what they enjoy. That's what they love to do.
Okay. So, so how do you think they get here? I mean, do they come on actual physical crafts? Do they use like wormholes, or is it or do they come, at the speed of thought? Is it a collective astral travel, so to speak, I guess?
Well, the Pleiadians, they actually can dematerialize their craft, because the speed of light is only relevant in the physical universe, and really it's only relevant in this universe, really, that has these different, because even in this universe, you get around a black hole, the properties of light change, things change. So even within this universe, depending on the environment that you're in, these constants are not as constant as they seem. But suffice it to say, the speed of light does represent a sort of barrier to moving. And what they can do is they could dematerialize their craft. And once they dematerialize their craft and become non-physical, they can travel in infinite speeds relative to the physical world. So they basically just go in a non-physical state, and zoom, they're traveling in this non-physical dimension, and they reposition their craft in the physical dimension when they get where they want to be. They can also simply use mind travel, like you were saying, and basically the way it works is every single area of space has a sort of coordinate to it. Just like how we have, in math class, we have the X and the Y, and there's a different number for each coordinate. Well, that's how space is. And according to like the Essassani, the Bashar's people, they see space as an actual aspect of an object. Like we have an object and it's this tall, this wide, this deep, but space to them is actually an aspect of the object, just like its height. So if an object is where it's at, is there because it has an aspect, a dimension to its being that has that coordinate of space. So if you change that coordinate of space, the position of the object in the universe changes. So what they learn how to do is they learn how to basically cocoon their craft in the field that sections it off, that basically makes it an island unto itself, to where it's no longer influenced by the space outside of it, basically like a vacuum. And once it's inside that vacuum, it's basically not necessarily dematerialized, but in a sense, it's outside of normal time space as we think of it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have a location. And what they can do is they learn how to map different locations in the universe. And all they have to do is impose the locational coordinate onto the craft that they want. And that new locational coordinate becomes an aspect of that craft's existence. And then it instantly disappears and reappears at the new location. So they just impose the different coordinate wherever they want to be. So they can disappear and reappear anywhere.
It sounds like a complete understanding of quantum entanglement.
So when we go outside at night and we look up at the sky and we see the stars and the moon and that kind of stuff, do you think that what we're seeing is just a third dimensional reflection of what's actually there?
No, I wouldn't look at it that way. I mean, the physical world, within the universe, the physical world is here. It's just that every object is multidimensional. So when we're in our physical body, we see the physical aspect of the object that vibrates at our frequency, and it also has a non-physical aspect. So it's not necessarily the physical aspect that was really there. The physical is there too. Again, it goes back to the holistic and comprehensive aspect, not invalidating any any of an object's dimensions, not invalidating it, not making one dimension of it more important or less. That's the thing. The ETs don't necessarily see third density as less, in a sense. Like, they recognize evolution in the evolutionary sense is less evolved in that sense, but it's not less in the sense of being invalid. They recognize third density as a valid choice. In other words, you're not going to get to fourth density unless you choose it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to choose it unless you're motivated to choose it. And you're not going to be motivated until you know what third density is. And until it's like the common saying, you never know what you have until you lose it. I remember,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a fan of John Bones Jones. He was saying when he had the title, he took it for granted. And now he lost it. He realized what it is. He really wants it back after he got in that trouble. After we've experienced, like for me, after I think I've experienced enough third density. And not all the way enough because apparently I'm still here. But each day I'm like, I'm getting out this joint. You know what I'm saying? So it's a valid experience, and it's a valid learning experience, and we learn a lot. Even those universes where Earth destroys themselves, that's a valid learning experience. It's a valid experience. It's one of the different aspects or facets that the universe has of expressing itself, of experiencing itself, of manifesting. So even if they look down at a third density world that is so third density they don't want to interact with them, they can still look at that and recognize it's a valid choice. They're learning, they're exploring an aspect of the universe, and it's still as valid, just as valid as fourth density. So when you look at a star, the physical aspect of that star is valid, and it's not necessary to invalidate the physical aspect to experience a non-physical or the higher dimensional. All the entire dimensional perspective of an object can be validated just like contact. You don't have to make contact mostly physical and mostly non-physical. Every single dimension, whether it's physical, whether it's dream, whether it's non-physical, whether it's telepathic, every single level of it is a valid experience, and all, neither one would be there without the other.
Hmm. Yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking about that saying, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, or reality is in the eye of the beholder. So what's just like in the out of body state, those are very real realms to me. Well, those are completely real, valid realms, and in what we term from this place as a non-physical reality. So yeah, I'm getting it. There's things clicking here for me as you're talking. So yeah, good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, would you say that the physical human form is the predominant form that's within the cosmos?
Nah, it's just it's just a local phenomena. That's all it is. It's just a local phenomena. Just like you know, if you go to the desert, there's a lot of beings there that their bodies are adapted to living in a dry environment. And you go into the tropics, the tropical jungle, you have a lot of beings there that's, accustomed to, like the rainforest and things like that. Totally different physiology. Well, it's the same thing. It's just that this galaxy and this region of the galaxy, this is just the type of beings that's here. Um, you know, uh, there's people have ran into insect-like beings, reptilian-like beings, octopus-like beings. I mean, pretty much any type of being you could think of, there's a sentient aspect of it. It's just that the reason why it could seem like that's the only type of being is because of us, because of our own choice. I mean, uh, it's easier for us to expand beyond the planet if we see a being that looks like us. Because I mean, we still have a problem with people that look like us. We have a problem with people whose skin color is different. We have a problem with people who religion is different. So, imagine if a 7-foot tall praying mantis walk up, you're gonna have a serious problem.
Yeah.
So, the initial contact we have is people with, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes. They might be short, They might have bigger eyes, but still they look pretty much like us. But that's just one of the many forms that ETs take.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you said the human form, you believe it originated out of the Lyran system.
According to the Pleiadians, yes. According to Sasha, the humans originated from Lyra.
Right, right. So I'm curious about what type of races and beings originate closer to the core of our own the Milky Way galaxy. I mean, I would think that would be, and this may not necessarily be true. I'm not a celestial mechanics guy, so I would think that the stuff around the core of our galaxy would be the older systems in and wonder what the evolution there on the older systems would look like. But have you come across any races that are in any of your research that originate out of something closer to the core of the galaxy?
I don't. But I actually plan on getting into that. I'm starting to, as far as I've been from the planet is like just a few hundred light years. So I plan on actually going a bit farther when I get into my practice again and exploring that. But I don't really know, and I don't really think it has to be that linear. I'm starting to find that beings could have come here from different galaxies. It's a really tricky thing when you get into ordinance, man, because like you were saying about reality and dream. Like really the whole everything is a dream, man. Everything is a dream. So it doesn't have to be one potentiality. I think we think about it from a very Darwinian type of perspective.
Right.
When really things could just pop up, man. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily have to be an evolutionary in a sense like that. Things could just pop up. I mean, things could just manifest. When I was in the let me back up because I don't know if we ever talked about this on the show. I guess we might have, but when I was a kid, I was in this desert world for like 7 days.
Yeah.
And by like the second or third day, this whole life and universe was a dream. And then when I woke up here, I thought I was in my dream.
Right.
I mean, to the point where I could have jumped off a building. I thought I was just dreaming. And then eventually that became the dream. When I went to a different timeline, and when I went out of body and explored what happened in a different timeline, and when I was in that timeline and I was in my body, I was the child self again. This entire lifetime never happened. It was I was that age again. I was that person again. So these different experiences, when I start to ponder them and put them together, I start to see how much of a dream everything is. Because if my experience in that desert world, from this perspective now, was just a dream, it's just a hazy memory, just like a dream I had at night. And in that reality, looking at this reality, this is the dream. What if there's a perspective beyond both of these realities? Well, guess what? Both of these realities are going to be a dream. So, and the fact is, there is a perspective outside of all of these different realities. And when I had that mystical experience of existing as the mind totally beyond the universe, all of this stuff was meaningless activity. So, but I really think we're going to find, man, of course we have the experiences that we have now in my research and so forth. I can go so far into the past that I've had that experience where I was basically outside the universe and all of this was meaningless activity. And, I think whenever we do bridge the gap where we actually have a hands-on view of what happened during this period of time, I think we're going to be pretty shocked, man. I think maybe we're going to find out that things start quite illogically, but I can only speculate. But, I think we're going to find out, man, that it don't have to be a very logical start like how we think about it. I think we're going to find that things can be quite illogical according to our perspective because the mind is just projecting stuff, just projecting stuff out and popping stuff out. And from the mind's perspective, like I said, from that perspective, this is all just meaningless activity. It could just project whatever it wants to project,
We got to be doing something, right?
Say again?
We got to be doing something. And
Well, no, I mean,
if just for existence, it'd be awful boring if we were just sat around in a state of bliss all the time.
well, I mean, ironically, the reason why we have the universe is to avoid that state of bliss, because in that state of bliss, there's no individual self.
Right.
So the meaningless of the universe doesn't change. It doesn't really matter what we're doing. Whatever we're doing, however important we think it is meaningless. That doesn't change. The reason why we don't acknowledge that is because we don't want the bliss, because there's no individuality in outside of this perspective framework. There's no individual self. So in order to hold on to our individual self, we make the meaningless have meaning. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why I write books and play video games and like movies and all the stuff I do to entertain myself or pleasure myself or whatever. That's what we do. But in the end, it's all just meaningless, and we're going to wake up from it like waking up from a dream. Just like how these different realities, I go to the other reality I came from was a dream. When we leave all realities, we're going to realize all of it is just a dream. But again, that beginning area where how it came into being and what was the origin, I don't really know, but one day I might put myself towards exploring it.
Yeah. So in regards to how we, overall look at the individual self, how do these extraterrestrial beings look at the individual self?
Well, pretty much the same way, just less of an investment in it. Like Bashar spoke how they still have an ego, because you really have to have an ego to contain yourself as an individual being. It's just that it doesn't rule their existence to the degree that it does us. It's just more backseat than us. That's why we can be so angry and afraid and all of these third person perspectives. So they still have an ego, they still have an individual self. They don't invalidate the ego or the individual self. It is recognized that it doesn't have to be such a prominent part of our decision making. That's why a lot of them, they have synchronicity. They go by synchronicity a lot more. You just end up where they need to be at the time they need to be at. And I'm starting to experience that more and more in my life now as I start to apply these principles. Like I might, have to do something or an appointment or whatever, and I might make the appointment and totally intend on doing it, and just totally forget about it. And then right at the perfect time, I just remember. And I'm just right on time. I'm starting to find it happening more and more and more. I just end up where I need to be. So, you'll find that the ETs just have a very, a lighter focus on the ego, a lighter ego perspective. But, that you have to have an ego to have an individual self. Once you let go of your ego, then you no longer exist as an individual self at all.
So are these ETs also on their own evolutionary path?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. It's just the lessons are different. But if you exist in the universe, you still have spiritual growth to do. You still have another evolutionary path. It's just that their lessons in forgiveness and lessons in spiritual progress. I say lessons in forgiveness because from my spiritual path, the Course in Miracles, the idea to encapsulate the practice is forgiveness. So, it's similar to, like the Hindus say sadhana, spiritual practice or whatever, in a sense you could say. But it's just that their lessons are different. Their lessons will have less to do with, dealing with anger outside. Sometimes they get upset about something, but they recognize it's within. There's a choice that they're making and they deal with it within. So, but they still have their own lessons. They might not have to deal with hunger. And I really don't know all the lessons that they have, of course, because they only, basically, from our perspective, the whole civilization, at least to me, from my perspective, the whole civilization is utopia, Yeah. But they have stuff that they're working on. I just don't know exactly what it is. But I do know that, at least according to, Alton and Percy, the Ascendant Masters, that visited Gary and Noah, they actually start to incarnate less because a lot of their civilization is starting to become enlightened. Once you don't have an ego anymore, then you just don't incarnate anymore. But they have their lessons. Every single being in existence, the reason why we exist is because we're running away from that that absolute bliss, that absolute oneness. And the mechanism that we use to do that is the individual self. The individual self is actually a mechanism to protect us from the reality of absolute oneness. So by the very fact that a being exists as an individual means that they have some spiritual work to do, and there's no exceptions to that. It doesn't matter how fancy their spacecraft is or how utopian their planet is. If you exist as an individual, you have work to do. The only exception is if you're enlightened, then when you die, you just want to incarnate again. But other than that, if you're an actual being and you have an ego and you're going to reincarnate, there's still work to be done, whatever it is, however small or big it is.
So it seems like we come down into here into the third dimension, and then it's a journey back out in towards that ultimate state of bliss. That seems to be that goal that everybody's focusing on is reaching that state of bliss where that unity consciousness where we lose our individuality. And I think what we do is we get up there and get close to it and go, oh, geez, we're too close. This is getting kind of boring. It's time to go back down let's go down to that base level 3D stuff again. Let's go to Earth. We'll start there. That's a good place. We lose all our memory and we can start it all over again and learn it all again.
Yeah, basically, you could say that's what's going on.
It's a cycle.
Yeah, but overall, we're all trying to evolve to that oneness, to that unity consciousness.
Well, I mean, really, no. I mean, it's really too.
Well, I guess I'm asking, is that what the goal is in your eyes?
Well, I mean, it depends on what level you're speaking from. I mean, the individual self, like as we experience ourselves to be, and with the ET agenda, from that perspective, the goal is evolution through, we could say, the densities towards more oneness and unity. But the oneness and unity that you get to through this sort of development is not real unity. Like, for instance, right now we're in transition from third density to fourth density. The third density is basically, separation, attack, fear, things like that. And fourth density is more allowance, unconditional love, and so on and so forth. And fifth density is less focused on the individual self and more focused on the group as an integrated unit. That's why a lot of all the advanced races are telepathic. They have less barriers up because they're totally honest and so on and so forth. And it continues to progress higher and higher. And then eventually you get to, you could say, the highest density, which is at the density of the one mind upon or through or from which all different densities and universes and so on and so forth emanate from. But, so you can say from this perspective that the purpose of life is to get to that level of being, but still that mind itself, the reason why we have all of these levels of being is to avoid absolute oneness, true oneness. So, so in a sense, that step-by-step progression towards development, in a sense, is sort of an avoidance still. On the one hand, it's a very, very, very slow progression towards the true ultimate, from my perspective and experience, goal of life, which is to awaken from the dream entirely. So, I mean, you make progress and you start to be more and more open to it, but it's not necessary to go through that progression over millions and millions of years and lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to reach the ultimate goal. You could do it at any time you want by making a choice. And that's what I learned with that experience when I went to that level of mind that was beyond everything. At that moment, looking back at it, I could have, from that perspective, that could have been it. I could have let go of my identity right then. That could have been it for me. I could have been enlightened and woken up, but I was afraid. There was that moment when, I can't even necessarily say there was an I. I don't really know how to describe this state necessarily, but all I can say is I was aware of all the activity that was the universe. And I was aware of all of the little bitty minuscule activity that's me, the me that's talking with you right now. And when I became aware of the meaningless of me and the meaningless of all this activity, I seem to have an awareness that the universal, the absolute I was meaningless as well. Because you can't have meaningless activity come from what's meaningful. You know, you can't have illusion come from what's real. So the universal mind is an illusory thing as well. But I hit this experience of I hit, and it was terror, absolute terror at letting go of this individual self, and immediately everything collapsed, and I was back in my individual body as an individual self again. But you know, that was in 2000, like 2006 or 2007 that happened. And, you know, so anybody, based upon my experience, anybody can get to that state now. And that state is beyond all densities. That state is beyond the third density. Earth is beyond the fourth density, is beyond the fifth density, the Pleiadians and the Exocyani. It's beyond all densities. So it's not necessary to spend millions and millions of years going through all this stuff to get to that perspective. The reason why we relegate our progress to that is because we don't really want that absolute oneness. But the thing is, it's so painful being where we are. That's why we try to do something.
Right.
You know, so we try to, you know, entertain it out or wealth it out or fame it out, and that doesn't work. Oh, let me try some metaphysical development and go through these densities, and we're trying to solve for the pain. So it's not really a drive to progress and evolve that makes us progress and evolve. And I know that goes in the face of a lot of the new age stuff people are saying, but I just don't think they have the experience to really put all of this stuff in perspective. The fact is, when you get to the level of mind that's projecting this stuff, we're terrified of being truly spiritual. We're terrified of letting go of the ego. We do not want it. So we come back here in this individual space, similar to what the process you were saying earlier, time, when we afraid. It's not really boredom. It's really absolute terror at losing our individual identity. And but we hurting, like, you know, I'm having to deal with this government and money and all this stuff. So I need to do something. So let me try to, you know, learn for density and get off this planet or something, or get to an alternate timeline or something. We're trying to solve for the pain.
Right.
But you know, but all of this stuff is fine. It's just that, you know, you don't have to take millions and millions of years and go through all these densities to do it. But it is a viewable path. But what's going to happen is, you know, at the end of the line, the same experience I had is the same experience everybody's going to have. Whether you go through density after density after density, and finally get to the end where you realize you're this universal mind, or you apply some authentic spirituality like A Course in Miracles and experience it in a year or two, you know, from that level of mind, you could actually let go of your investment in being a mind itself. And then that's when everything just disappears. You know, so really, in my experience, there's two different avenues. There's the multi-millennial route where you know, you trek along this way for millennia, or you could just do it at any period of time.
Right. Good points. Good points, Daryl. Great job. Oh, man. Yeah, you know, this is quite an interesting place that we find ourselves in. Yeah, just that it's I'm just totally fascinated with the learning process that we're going through, that I'm going through, and the different steps that I've been taking, and epiphanies that seems like it's a very regular occurrence where I have those epiphanies where I go, oh wow, the light bulbs go off and little bells and whistles and dings, and I just I don't know. It's a lot to wrap your mind around, but then it's actually kind of simple.
That's right. It is.
Yeah.
You know what? It's as complicated as our unwillingness to accept it.
Right.
That's really all it is.
Yeah. Good point. Well, so Daryl, I started with both the LFE and I have started reading the Course in Miracles book that you sent.
Awesome.
It's I've got about 30 pages into it, and good stuff, man. I will. We'll definitely have to do a show after we've both of us consumed a bit more of the book. We'll have to get you back on and do a show focused right around that work in itself. I'm just totally in awe of your multifaceted skills and abilities, and the wisdom that you bring to bear on all these topics is very refreshing. So, thank you so much for that. So, what do you got coming up this summer? Anything in the works?
I have. I'm gonna do another 2-month course, August and September, for anybody who's interested. The 2-month out of body course. Um, I plan on going to see the Milky Way next month. I found this uh, observatory where it's like in a very secluded from city lights. And I always want to see like the actual Milky Way and see what it looks like. So I'm going to do that. Part of my motivation, because I'm trying to motivate myself to practice so I can go out of body and go to more solar systems and star systems. I actually plan on going to the other side of the galaxy one time. So that's pretty much the main things coming up, in the 2-month course coming up in August. And I'll be doing some star seeing to learn more about the galaxy soon. And I may be at the Kentucky Book Fair in November. So I sent them my submission. They have a book fair every year, and classes on the Course in Miracles. I sent them today actually. So they do their finalization process by June, I believe. So by June, I'll know if I'll be at the Kentucky State Book Fair in November. Anybody want to go to a book signing? So I sent in Travel Far last year, and I was accepted, and I was in the book fair last year. So I'll see if I'll do the book fair in November this year.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, man, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great show, and we always appreciate your input, wisdom, and
you always give us a lot more to think about.
Yeah, my brain's just going 1,000 miles a minute right now. I'm having problems spitting words out. So
awesome.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. I like having these thought-provoking conversations that definitely get my juices flowing. So. Wow. Well, I hope all you guys out there listening are just as baffled and confused as I am right at the moment. Because it's good stuff. It feels good. It really feels good to actually, challenge my own thought processes and to, make myself see things from different perspectives. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it myself. And I feel like I'm growing.
Yes, definitely.
So, good stuff. All right. Well, guys, we are going to sign off, and we will be back in a week or two with, I don't know who we've got lined up next. I've been picking names out of that YouTube video I put out there about, who you guys wanted us to talk to on this subject. And actually, I think I'll be referring back over to that and see what other names that we've got on there that we will contact and get on the show. So look forward to more on the UFO, alien stuff, yeah, whatever topic, and we'll be chatting at you guys again. So much love. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste, my friends.